Hello. Good afternoon. Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. You're very much audible, ma'am. Welcome, ma'am.
All right. So good afternoon to all. I'm sorry I got slightly delayed because of the network or connectivity issue, I guess. It was showing
Good
connecting.
afternoon, ma'am.
Good afternoon.
Ma'am, with your permission, shall I begin with the session?
Yes, please.
Yes. So good afternoon to everyone present. My name is Pranit Kaur, and we are here today to begin our afternoon session of 1 week online FTP on recent advancements and emerging technologies in the area of education and research organized by IIMT College of Management. So yesterday we had with us Dr. Ajit Kumar, Assistant Professor, School of Education, IGNOU, New Delhi, who gave us an insight on introduction of OER development. In addition, we had Professor Muhammad Ubaidullah Bukhari, Professor, Department of Computer Science, AMU, Aligarh, who shared with us his acumen on a systematic approach to develop and distribute e-content over the web of academics. So moving on with the learning process, it is my heartiest pleasure to introduce our speaker for the afternoon session, Dr. Rashmi Bhatia. So Professor Dr. Rashmi Bhatia is the Director, Xavier Institute of Management and Design, Greater Noida West. She is PhD in HR and has a mix of corporate and academic experience. She has over 20 research papers published in Scopus and UGC indexed journals. She has also conducted various FTPs and seminars and has been instrumental in foreign affiliation under the Faculty and Student Exchange Program under the aegis of UCRI London. Ma'am, I welcome you on behalf of IIMT College of Management and request you to kindly start with the session on impact of COVID-19 on education and research. Welcome, ma'am.
Thank you, Praveet. Thank you so much for your kind introduction. And a very good afternoon to all present in this webinar. And see, this is one of the impact of COVID-19, as we can see. And if I can, guess that all of you are from the academic field. And so therefore, starting with my introduction, I'm Dr. Professor Rashmi Bhatia, and I'm heading one of the management institute. And, for past 2 years, what we have been seeing, the pandemic, one of its kind, that we must have experienced in our lifetimes, and how it has impacted the education and research. So this is my topic for today. So we all are from academics, and we have understood how the technology, without technology, we would not have been in a position to continue with our education for our students. So as part of my session, I'm going to talk about, what has been the guidelines that were being followed in the education field, and how the research was affected because of this pandemic. What has been some perspective on the employment? So that also I'm going to touch upon for some of my points, and of course the health and safety of our students. And the last being would be the educator provider, the institute like ours and like IIMT. So starting with my session, the world we were living till the year 2019, we were thinking that it was a well-connected, interconnected world. We were everywhere. We were talking about the globalization, interconnectedness of all the industries, of all the people, right? And the impact of this interconnected, we also got the risk that we faced. Today morning, when I was, watching some the newspaper site and on the YouTube, and I found one of the ad which was featuring, that these days, if we talk about Delhi NCR, most of us are living in high-rise buildings, and the infection of, such viruses is all the more, prevalent in such buildings, because we are so living so close, we are so interconnected with each other. We have to use in high-rise buildings. I mean, if we are living on, let's say, 20th floor or 27th floor, we have to use the lift, and lift becomes one area where we get infection. So, this person, he was basically, promoting about the individual housing complexes. So that was the ad about. But why am I referring to this point here is because how interconnected we were, and similarly we were facing the risk also being interconnected. So COVID-19 pandemic has not stopped at national borders only. It affected people regardless of nationality, regardless of level of education, regardless of level of income we come from, regardless of the gender. But the same has not been true for its consequences, which have hit the most vulnerable hardest. We all were lucky enough, our students were lucky enough that we could continue the education, especially in higher education, we could continue the education without much of disruption. Of course, we had to learn new techniques. We had to learn about Teams, we had to learn about Zoom, we had to learn about maybe Google Classroom or whatever platform, you were talking about. In fact, in my college, when I was, once I was discussing, we were discussing with our chairman, and we were talking that, in 2018, or when this new education policy was about to come, and some basic guidelines were being formed, and we were taking, a view that how edtech companies were coming in, and they were getting so popular. Now we realize that now is the time for these edtech companies to, grab the maximum market share. And see, if you watch any of the programs on television, you can see that, every new ad is of an edtech company. So what I'm telling you is that yes, the people who were privileged, the students who were privileged, coming from privileged background, were supported by their parents, and parents would provide them all kinds of gadgets to continue with their education. Who were eager to learn or able to learn could find their way past, even the closed school doors to alternative learning opportunities. But those from disadvantaged background, haven't we seen in the news, those underprivileged students who were, I saw one of this clipping in the news that some students, they didn't have the gadgets, so they would gather in one of the street, and a loudspeaker was put up somewhere on the street, and one person who had the phone, and he would switch on the classroom, and they would sit and all listen to it, right? So these were the kind of situations that underprivileged, not so privileged student had to face through. So this crisis has exposed the many inadequacies and inequalities in our education system, right from access to the broadband and the computers that were needed for online education, and the supportive environment needed to focus on learning, up to the misalignment between resources and needs. Now, we as education providers, in our respective institutes, in our respective schools, or whichever business college we are in, we had to learn first ourselves. We had to improve our infrastructure, and then we had to think something new, how to, attract the audience, because you're not aware. Even if you say your kids to switch on their video, they will not. And even now this is happening. I'm sure most of you agree to this statement, that students are not keen when we are talking about, taking the classes online. We're talking about, I mean, not just the classes, think about the assessment. What different platforms we had to explore. And, however hard, whatever difficulty level you would use, see, universities had to postpone the exams. Talk about Delhi University, they also faced IP universities, because my college was earlier affiliated to IP University, and we had to face so many challenges, and university had to take, they took time to decide whether the final year exam should be online or offline, and if offline, then what kind of safety guidelines do the examination center has. So students were reluctant to come, parents were reluctant to send their kids to the examination center. But then final year exams were very important, because the final degree, the industry companies are going to ask for the final degree with their, physical exams. Because how do you gauge the performance of the students online? That was the biggest challenge. So lockdowns in response to this COVID-19 had interrupted conventional schooling with nationwide school closures in most of the OECD and partner countries, right from the beginning of 2020. So the educational community have made, quite a lot of efforts to maintain the learning continuity during this period. Children and students have had to rely more on their resources to continue learning remotely through the internet, television, or radio. Teachers also had to adapt new pedagogical concept and modes of delivery of teaching. I remember, when this lockdown was there, and the teachers were told to first get accustomed to, teaching online, and then do the exams online, take the assessment, various kind of, frequent assessment, continuous internal evaluation, as we call it. Because if for example, my institute was NAC accredited, and we had to follow certain, parameters. We had to fulfill the documentation also because of the lag, and my next cycle was, due in 2020. So that also got postponed. So because of this accreditation, documentation, so we had to record all our classrooms. So asked all my teachers to, record their lectures and post it on the Google Classroom or whichever medium we are teaching through. So we had to learn new pedagogical techniques to deliver our lecture, to understand the student problems at the same time. I'm sure most of you agree. We've had so many students who, lost either one or two of their parents, and they were in bad shape, talking about their fees, talking about, they're continuing their education. So the mentoring programs also were, made mandatory. I made it mandatory for my teachers. Reason being that students were facing a lot of stress. So we had to counsel the student. It was not just the classes that we had to continue. We also had to face the challenges of the, the student being in continuous learning mode. Now, there's so many students, so many things were happening. Somebody was hospitalized, somebody was COVID affected, somebody's relative was, requiring some blood or oxygen. And then we all had to pitch in to help each other, for the students, for our community at our colleges, and at the same time continue with all the regulations of the government, from time to time, whenever the lockdowns were there. I remember I had to visit my college, because even when lockdown was there, and I had to cross the the border, it was so difficult, because uh, uh, some work was required for me to be present in the college. You know, to the faculty, my faculty were also facing so many challenges, because they had very young kids, and they could not continue with their jobs. So they wanted a break, a semester break or something like that. So we as administrators also had to face so many challenges of, continuing with all the requirements of making learning possible, making assessment possible, keeping everything as per the guidelines of the the statutory bodies with which we are affiliated to, and at the same time also listening to everybody's problems and providing the solution. So this kind of a situation, it would not have been possible for just one person, one teacher or one principal, or or few people only. Even the management also pitched in. I remember our management, they also made some provisions for that if somebody requires some oxygen cylinders, so we're going to have it in our campus, so make it available whoever requires it. I mean, it was very tough, especially when the first wave came in. So the impact of COVID-19 on education posed so many challenges, not just in our country, across the countries all over the world. My family members are, in some abroad countries, and we were talking and we were, listening. For example, in US and UK, schools were not shut down, and I remember that young kids, very very young kids, and they had to go to the school. We were fortunate enough that at least we never wanted to take any kind of risk of sending our kids to schools. But in those countries, everything was open. Imagine countries like Sweden, who were, talking about, the I mean, you could move around. If anybody has to have this infection, they will get. So the herd immunity and things like, such things were being talked about. Now, even after vaccination started, then also parents were reluctant to send their kids to school, even when the regulation from the government, Delhi government or UP government, since we are in Delhi NCR sector. So even when they had started, but some, the government was also facing that parents were not reluctant. I mean, so many surveys, so many, studies were conducted. Do parents want to send their kids to school? And now we see, now parents are so they want their kids to go to schools and colleges, because look at the development of the kids. What is happening? They are indoors. They could not play outside. So a school kid or a college kid has to have a balance of studies and play, sports. Everything has to be there. So we are not just teachers, we also look at their future, we also mentor them, we also counsel them, we also look at their future perspective. So the teachers and the administrator of educational setup had to face a lot of challenges. Challenges were there, but a lot of learning was there. I personally feel, and I personally made it kind of compulsory to all my teachers to keep attending webinars, and we attended so many webinars online, and we learned a lot, which was may not be possible if we have to step outside, because inside there are so many administrative work going on, so we can't send so many teachers all the time. But online, anybody could attend. I myself had attended so many webinars of foreign universities, and a lot of learning that took place. We were so connected. If we talk about research also, I remember I was writing down few case studies, and we were connected. There was a case study wherein I had my co-authors from different university all over India, and it was a very different kind of experience. Yes, the workload got really increased. We all were, on our toes all the time, even if we were at home in those lockdown time. We were working, making reports, doing innovation, doing research. So all of it, so the learning aspect, the learning horizon got wider. We had access to so many such things, online, which was not possible earlier. So what I'm trying to say is that it had both pros and cons of, such a pandemic. There was a lot of learning from this pandemic. Now, the higher education, we've had this new education policy. I'm sure you all must have gone through it. And this is one of the best education policy after so many decades. And digitalization and the online learning that we're talking about, the continuous internal evaluation that we're talking about, ABC, the academic bank of credit that has been spoken about, and this policy is amazing. There's a lot that we can do, in higher education um, from this education policy. So the implementation has already started, and in so many universities and so many colleges, it is still going on, or maybe they are planning to launch it. So considering this new education policy, considering this pandemic, I think suddenly there has been a disruption in this education industry. And because of this disruption, we can see a new ecosystem of learning, of teaching, learning, student development, faculty development that is now taking shape. Talking about research, uh, since we were attending more and more of online webinars and more of such faculty development session as we people are currently being part of. So such sessions, only if we have this passion to learn, new things, explore new areas of our research. I'm sure most of you who are into research, who've written research papers in past 2 years, almost every journal was flooded with articles on COVID-19. I remember one of the, MDI, the journal and the editor, she was speaking in one of the conference, and she was saying that, I've stopped taking any articles on COVID-19. I'm so fed up. Everybody's writing on COVID-19. So then people were forced to think creative, to think innovative, think of new topics wherein you can do some research. So this is how, because of this pandemic, not just we started taking online classes, not just we, talking about new ways of taking assessment test of our student, or not just attending the webinars, but we also learned to think out of the box. We also learned to do some research, which is something very different. Do research on some new ideas and counsel and mentor student on new avenues for them. Right? I remember we were, conducting this business plan competition, and the date of final presentation of this business plan competition for our student, for all the participants who were from pan India, all different universities, and we had to conduct this competition on, I remember, on 19th of March, and the lockdown happened. We had to close the college suddenly, and then we had to inform all the participants that because of this lockdown, we could not do it in physical form. Wait for some time, and then we shall conduct this final presentation round. And then we conducted, somewhere it got it kept on getting postponed. And finally, we could conduct it in the month of June, I remember. What I'm trying to say, that it was a business plan competition, and the students who had submitted their business plan, that was of that were the plans of some prospective business they wanted to start. That was prior to pandemic. And when we conducted this competition in the month of June 2020, so that time pandemic had already hit all of us. So the kind of queries that were raised by jury members, that was, I was also part of the jury, and we were telling them that now the entire ecosystem of business has changed. So what new? You should have changed your business plan. Why did you stick to your old plans while giving presentation? You could have changed your thinking while presenting, that now everything is, new. So now I'm going to launch my business in so and so pattern, or these will be now my projections. So what I'm saying is that, we had to orient ourselves, we had to orient our organizational team members, we also had to orient our students to think about the new normal, to think about the new ecosystem of learning, teaching, business, everything new. So therefore, for the students, we thought that we should tell them that maybe the jobs would not be available when you are going to pass out in 2020, 2021. You will have to think on entrepreneurial lines also. Think about doing some entrepreneurial venture. Think if you cannot get a job with these kind of normal normal learning as part of your curriculum of your university program, think about joining some new courses. Think about adapting to new technologies. You will not be able to survive if you don't learn something new. So this is how we had to think, out of the box. We had to think about innovative ways of aligning our capabilities, aligning our abilities, developing new skill set, developing new competencies to stay relevant in the new world after pandemic, to do research in new areas, to to deliver something new to our audience, because our audience is also evolving. Our audience of our students, they also have different kinds of questions. I also take classes, and I always make it a point, in my first class, I tell my students, keep asking questions. If you don't ask, then I'm going to ask questions. So let us not keep our classrooms boring. It should not be one-way communication. Why don't you keep asking? So we as teachers, we as educationists, we have to keep this curiosity element always at a high level for our students. We have to keep poking at them that they should come up with new questions. If we don't poke them, that means they are not taking interest in our subject. That means they are not interested in learning in our subject. That is going to be our mistake. We are not just teachers. I'm not here to just deliver my lecture. I'm here to make learning possible. I'm here to make learning possible for each and every student of my class, for each and every team member of my team. So not just student, when we become administrator, we become, we move up the career ladder and we become more responsible. So then we have to take everybody along. It is not just the terms that we use while teaching, teamwork and participative management and all those things. We actually should implement. We actually should understand what do I mean by teamwork? I'm taking everybody along, in this learning journey. I'm taking everybody along in my training journey. So if I have learned something, I used to make it a point that I should immediately share with my team members. And I should also be training them off and on, not just my faculty members, I had to train my staff members also, because they were so reluctant. I mean, during the lockdown, I remember all my staff members, they would say, ma'am, I do not have any computer, I do not have any laptop. So how do I make reports? And it was all the more difficult for all of us, all my teachers, including myself, to, compile the report, because we were so dependent on this stuff. They were always preparing reports. We had this ERP, and they had to post some notices, and everything was being posted on the ERP. And they would simply say, "Ma'am, no, my phone is not a smartphone. I don't have a laptop." So okay, even if I provide them the laptop, but there's so many staff. So how do I arrange the funds from for my department to immediately provide them for all of this? So then we had to counsel them also. I remember in one of my sessions, I had to counsel all my staff members that you also have to cooperate. If my teachers are cooperating till 9, till 10 in the evening, why don't you also cooperate? Try and put some notices on the ERP through your phones. I'm sure somebody would be having a laptop in your family. Arrange at least for 1 hour, do 1 hour some activity. Although we were paying them full salary, but they were, just because there was a pandemic and the borders were closed, so they could not come down, and they would say, "Man, you can call us in the campus." So look at the challenges that we all had to face. Think about, I mean, when I think now, I mean, how hard it was. And now we are so glad that, at least we are going to the campus, if not students. Now, when the government also relaxed the guidelines, okay, now the schools are opening, and then suddenly it got closed again, then again it got open, and then all the students would not come to the class. So then you would switch on to the hybrid mode. Then I prepared a plan, I discussed it with my chairman. I said, sir, we have to do the hybrid mode, because only 30%, final year, I remember, hardly 15-20% were ready to come down to the campus. They were the final year students. They were focusing more on the for the placement. Now, coming to the employment scene, I had conducted so many, alumni talks, so that at least my alumni were in touch with my students. Every week, I remember we used to conduct so many alumni talks, so many alumni connect programs, because we are very active on our alumni. And then, of course, we were, constantly we were inviting our guest speakers also from the industry, so that that awareness is there. And not just this, we had to now. What about the industrial visit? That is one area that I remember we were lacking. And now imagine, even for industrial visit, the virtual visit have been made possible. So how every institute, every college has started something new, has started something, innovative. So I'm sure this pandemic has given us so many challenges, but pandemic has also given us so many learnings. We have actually repositioned, we have actually realigned everything that we were doing earlier. Now you can see our, the office systems, the office landscape. If you see, it is quite different now. We have less of papers. All the time we are on phone. All the time we are with our speakers. All my classrooms are, now are changed completely, because we are conducting these hybrid classes, and some of the students who are attending classes in online mode, and some of the students who are coming to the campus. Now, if we talk about those undergraduate students who are, very difficult to maintain, control them in the class. So disciplinary action, that also required our attention. So when they are coming to the class, they should not be disturbing others' classes, right? So all the time, For example, if some of my teachers, they are also taking online classes. So I had to ensure that one teacher is available in the class who is just monitoring the activities of the students who are there in the class and who are not disturbing, but the learning is there. Otherwise, what would happen? They would go and roam around here and there, and of course, they are hooked onto the class because the online link is also there. But talking about the learning, we had to do so many projects, so many exercises, so many new ways of drafting our question papers with higher levels of difficulty. So all these things required our attention, and all the time we were just brainstorming. Now, continuing with our affiliations and traditions and doing our documentation simultaneously also required a lot of time. So since the classes were not in physical mode, so we had to record all our lectures, keep a list of all the recorded lectures, in a different file, and keep all the online study material on the ERP or whatever system that we were following. So keeping track of so many things, even when you're doing online, was another challenge. Now, the benefits, had to be carefully weighed against the health risk. Now, if students, if parents have allowed some portion of the students, imagine conducting the admissions, and you had to call all your team members because admission was something very important. If students are not there in the campus, whom are you going to teach? So, I mean, it can come up on our jobs also. So we had to fulfill all the vision of our management and continue with our regular working, considering the trade-offs, with coordination between education and public health authorities at different levels of government. So all this required tailoring your responses. All this required how individual campus or individual institute had to respond to their individual, challenges. Now, suddenly, at least we are now prepared if some such thing suddenly arises. So how well prepared we should be. Now, talking about research, I've already explained that we had to think about new areas where we could do research, and talking about the in fact nowadays NAC and NBA and all these accreditation authorities, they want the research papers in well-reputed journals. We talk about Scopus, we talk about ABDC journals. So giving so much of time to our teachers so that they can, do some quality research. So providing them all the funds, providing them all the required journals they require in the library. I remember one of our visit was there, and that was in April 2020. And of course, I called all my teachers and some students also, if they could come. Very few students could come, and the team had come to see, it was an affiliation visit. And when they looked at the library, because we had recently in 2018 or 2019, we had renovated our library, and they pointed out one thing, the capacity. What do you think? The students come to the library, and then we have to think, that nowadays, whether students or teachers, there's hardly any footfall in the library. Reason being, we all have got so accustomed to online journals, online books, ebooks. So then we started doing this collection of ebooks, right? And this is not just related to pandemic that I'm saying. We had started slightly earlier also. But now in pandemic, yes, it really helped, because we had all the book banks and all the books available as ebooks, so we could have it shared to our students. So at least the students never suffered any loss because of such, proactive approach to all such things. So therefore, the institutes had to have this proactive approach, and we as administrator, yes, we had to think all the challenges we were facing, but then we also had to think, what best or what kind of situation can arise. I remember we had conducted one of the seminar, and we had asked for so many copies of the proceeding book. And the lockdown happened, and then the publisher said, "Ma'am, I have the books ready, but I cannot deliver it to your college." And we were also, slightly apprehensive. Should we get these books picked up, or should we ask him to do the e-copies? Although we did request, he should prepare some e-copies. But then, as you all know that, in India, we all have to have the hard copies available in our colleges, because you never know when the NAC people or the NBA people or any accreditation body coming to our campus, they require the hard copies also. So even on small such things, touching and touch spaces. I remember we had to change the door handles also, because people never wanted to touch the handles. So we had to have those sensor-oriented doors. So I mean, you think about the infrastructure. If you have the funds, you had to change the infrastructure because of this COVID-19. Haven't we seen in the newspapers that so many offices were vacated? Now, if you go and visit the malls, so many showrooms have closed down. So people have become so, fearful. They have become so scared to touch and then use, sanitize. But I keep telling my team members, I keep telling our students also, that we have to develop our immunity. So focus on your fitness also. Now, if you have to get into jobs, every organization these days, they used to have their own gym. Even we people have it in our education institutions. But then why don't you focus on doing yoga? Yoga is something for which you do not require any such equipments. So start focusing on yoga, start concentrating, doing some meditation. All these things were taken by education institutions to overcome the stress for all the team members, for the students also, because we all were going through a lot of stress during this time. So these were the parameters, in education, research that we were talking about. Menika, so how much time do I have? Should I leave some time for question and answer session?
Ma'am, you still have 10 minutes.
Okay, so should I keep 10 minutes for question answer, or should I continue with my lecture?
Ma'am, as you wish, ma'am.
Okay, if I have any questions, so please, if you have any question, you can always interrupt me. Otherwise,
I request all the participants and academicians, in case they have any query, they can always raise the hand, so we can you can directly interact with ma'am. And by the time, in case we get any questions, you may continue, ma'am.
I can continue. Right. Now, when we were talking about this research, and we had to, because we are in education institutions, and we know that we have to get some projects also on which we keep working as academicians. So, we were exploring a number of such projects, and because of this pandemic, we had more such projects available, because there were so many COVID-19 related projects that were available on which we could work, right? So whether it was related to some extension activities during those times in the first wave people were not getting, medicines, and our students really pitched in, they had opened some kind of mohalla clinics that Delhi government has done it. So they all arranged funds, and they would go and deliver, of course with their mask on. They would go and deliver medicines near the hospitals, because there were so many underprivileged people who were there. And so these kind of extension activities also, we asked our students, and if some of our teachers could also accompany at least one teacher. So all of us were so prompt, and we were always ready to help, in those pandemic times, the first wave time, especially, if I'm talking about. And then talking about the vaccination, people were reluctant. Some of my team members, I still remember, they were reluctant to get vaccinated. And then we also had conducted some sessions. It is safe to get vaccinated, and at least, you will have to come down to college sometime or the other. So it's better that if you get vaccinated, because the other people are going to feel scared that, so and so person is not vaccinated, so why should we meet them? So we had to change the landscape of our college also. I remember we had to, shift their seats to, keep a distance apart. And so infrastructural changes related to research, I've already told you that, we have gone in for more e-journals. And so we were conducting a lot many sessions, although it was consuming most of our time. So we were conducting sessions to mentor our students besides the teaching. The counseling sessions, the alumni sessions were there, because some of our alumni were also out of jobs. But then the companies were also, very welcoming. So if, for example, I remember there were few companies who were ready to talk to our student, interview them, and they for the test, of course, they could conduct online, and per se interview session also they could conduct online. But they were kind of reluctant that students, if we ask the students to come down to office, will they be allowed? So from institute side, yes, we've given the permission for the final year students. Yes, they can go and join the companies, but majority of them were working online. And since some of our students also had applied in foreign universities, so they were kind of because they had to collect some document from the college, they had to collect some document from the university, so they were facing problems. Sometimes the university is closed, or sometimes my concerned person is not there in the college, and they had to submit all the documents online. And then they also had to face some issues regarding the vaccination. For example, in UK, they were not considering this co-vaccine earlier. Although my student were vaccinated twice, both the doses were there. And she said, ma'am, they're not allowing me, and they're saying that you still have to take some Medama or some other vaccine, whichever is available in their country. And then flights got disrupted. So my students who already got the admission, and they had to join because their colleges and schools were not closed, so they had to join. So these kind of every aspect we had to incorporate some changes. But we as teachers, we never compromised on our students' safety, on our students' lack of learning, the infrastructure, whatever they had in their houses. So we were always helping them. We were always extending help to them. I remember some of the students, in the first wave, they could not attend classes because maybe some connectivity issue or bandwidth problem in their hometowns. And so we had allowed, maybe taking some extra test, we had allowed them. And we had sent some request letter to the university also. In fact, I remember the final exams were, by IP University, they conducted in physical mode. So some students could not come down. So then they were allowed, they were given some extra date for appearing for the exams. So the students also learned quite a lot because of this pandemic. And there was a lot of relearning, as people say that you have to learn, unlearn, and relearn. Alvin Toffler had said. So that was the most apt statement that we all did for all this pandemic time. But for future, yes, for future, what we need to consider is that, of course, new education policy has given you so many avenues where you can bring about some changes. And pandemic has also given you a lot of learning, how you should be going about, handling your future classes. So, yes, digitalization is one aspect that we all have to get our hands on, comfortable in all the digital modes of doing learning and teaching. And student development activity or faculty development activity should not stop. So we have so many other avenues. So the only thing that we need to keep in mind is that everything is possible. Don't lose heart. Just be patient and be more focused. And for that, yes, do some yoga, keep yourself fit, be healthy, develop your immune system. I remember our team members, we already have a group, and we were sharing, how you can make yourself not just, positive, but by doing yoga, you get a different, you know, a different energy in your body, because we all were working not just 8 hours or 9 hours. We were working till 10 or 11 also in the evening. I remember in my first wave lockdown, and we were working so hard. So I had to, we had conducted so many, I remember, happiness workshops also. I myself had conducted. And because I also made it compulsory for all my faculty members to do some MOOC courses. So we were doing some happiness or stress related MOOC courses. And this is how all these, new webinars, it really helped. And so the development was there, the learning was there, things never stopped, especially for the fortunate people. But for unfortunate also, we extended our hand. So our extension activities, our students were very, keen to do some extension activities for underprivileged students. So that also kind of never helped. They were doing some online classes for these kids, or they were helping them in getting admission in schools, or whichever way, our students and teachers were always providing a helping hand. So I'm sure we all were doing all such things. It's not just from my institute. I was just sharing some glimpses how we had handled this COVID-19 pandemic. And learning never stopped. On the contrary, learning reached new boundaries, and research never stopped. Research also reached new boundaries, and we had new avenues opening up for our research proposals, for our research work, and research papers getting published. But a lot of learning was there. So we just need to be positive and think of, future, how we are going to handle our students, how we are going to handle our institutions. So let us grow together, let us learn together through these kind of webinars. So I'm so thankful to IIMT people for providing me this opportunity so that I could share my experiences. I'm sure people are sharing their experiences, but it would have been really nice if people would have been asking questions. Thank you so much, Menika and Pravneet. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you so much for sharing your experiences and for this wonderful session on impact of COVID-19 on education and research. And ma'am very rightly said that we have faced innumerable challenges, but as they say, every cloud has a silver lining. So with every new disruption that came, a new possibilities of student teaching learning came up, and through every complication we have persevered. So thank you so much, ma'am, for your valuable time. Thank you so much for sparing your time for us. Thanks a lot, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
With this, we move towards the conclusion and valedictory session of our 1 week online FTP. Before moving towards the valedictory session, I would like to kindly request Ms. Menika Sharma, convener of this event, to summarize this 1 week online FTP for us.
Thank you so much, Pravneet ma'am, for sharing the platform. My greetings to all dear participants and my colleagues. I'm very much hopeful that this FDP on recent advancements and in emerging technologies in the area of education and research has added a lot of value to our knowledge pool, which was already there. The week-long FDP had given us the privilege to connect to and listen to various eminent personalities from academia. This faculty development program focused on various advancements and ongoing trends in education and research, covering basics to the latest developments happening in the area. IIMT College of Management organized this FDP with the objective to create a platform for generating and sharing new knowledge to help the faculty from various streams in higher education. The sessions were very well handled by the renowned professors from IITs, IGNU, Aligarh Muslim University, and directors of esteemed institutions, covering vivid topics from developing e-content and its distribution over the web, and insights into open education resource creation, shifting role of faculty and teachers in higher education, to the role of positive education in today's scenario. I'm very much thankful to all of you for attending this FTP. We will be sharing the FDP link, the feedback of the FDP in the groups today. I request you to kindly join the valedictory session. I'll be sharing the link soon in the group and request you to kindly join there. With this, I put my words to an end with a lot of gratitude to all the participants coming from across the nation. That is all from my side. Thank you so much and meet you soon in the next session. Thank you from the FDP team.